Welcome everybody back to the financial podcast. Today's Market Explained, a 4-star media event. And today, instead of a market commentary, we have Patty Arvielo. Patty is the CEO and founder of New American Funding. And it's really timely that we talk with you, Patty, because of the state of the lending business, the mortgage business. So welcome, Patty, to today's Market Explained.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. I'm happy to be here today.
Good. Well, thanks for taking the time. And you're out in Tustin, California, and where is that? That's like Orange County, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Our headquarters is located, and we founded the company here in California. I'm actually a Las Vegas, Nevada resident, so moved a few years ago. But yeah, we still run a majority of our company out of California, but we are across the country. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thank you again, Patty. This is an interesting time to have this conversation. A year ago, the real estate markets were still going up, and everybody was chasing properties, and we heard things like, "Gee, this will never end," and the real estate market's here forever. We've heard all these things, and now, of course, that's all changed quite a bit. So, if you could catch us up in the last year, what's going on in the industry, and tell us a little bit about what's happening now.
Yeah. So, that water faucet turned off very quickly. I think in my 42 years of doing mortgage lending, I think what took everybody off guard was the how rapid everything turned, right? How rapid rates went up. It wasn't a slow trajectory from one interest rate to another. It was very, very quick, which consumers and the media grabbed a hold of and put a lot of fear into the markets. So that was, early part of 2022. For us, we're very data centric. We run data reports. We look at data. We look at trends. I think that the market's very different depending on where you live in the country. I think that the demand for housing is still very high. I think that the borrowers have settled into where interest rates are right now, which are high sixes. We still have markets where there's multiple offers, believe it or not. And then I call these markets where, the buyers were buying homes late 2021 or maybe summer 2021. And then they're like flipping it 6 months later for a huge profit. I called that the greed factor, where the sellers found out that they bought something and yet somebody was going to come in and pay a higher price. So I think that the decrease in values in a lot of markets, much like Southern California, New York, Miami, if there was a decline in value, it was just that greed factor of being able to flip a house a year or 6 months to a year into buying it to a borrower who just wanted to be in the market. That market's gone now. So I haven't really seen a steep decline in the markets that we're in. I actually see a lot of demand in certain markets across the country, multiple offers happening today on homes.
So that's interesting you say that. So in the financial markets that we operate in, we're seeing kind of a really sloppy financial market. The financial companies, the banks are struggling because of the fractional deposit issues and other things. Yet the home builder stocks are doing very well. And I know there's a lot of home building. So where are these markets? Where? Good.
Yeah. Midwest is very good. Colorado's still a booming market. I would say up and down the East Coast doing very, very well. I would say the West Coast is probably where home builders aren't too excited to be. But in the Midwest and up and down the East Coast are still doing very well. And the fact of the matter is that we still have a shortage of housing. We've had a shortage of housing for a decade or more now. And there's more buyer demand than there are housing. We got the millennials at the ripe age of home buying right now, family formation. A large percentage of millennials are minorities. So, the demand for housing is still there. And so now that the interest rates have kind of settled where they are and people aren't anticipating a big drop, or maybe it's not the right time, we are seeing an uptick in certain markets. We actually had one of our largest funding months last month from the first quarter of last year. So April of this year was one of our largest funding months purchase-wise since the market turned.
Nice. Well, most of the real estate experts recognize that somewhere around the fall of '05 was the high of that last wild market. And then it finally crashed in '08, '09, corrected even more and bottomed somewhere around 2012. And then, we had a whole 7-year period there where there was very little home formation. Are we still dealing with the lack of housing from that crash?
Yeah, I think we're just that compounded with what institutional investors coming in and buying all the homes that they did during pandemic. It just, it's just that ripple down effect. It's continually, we didn't improve our situation. It's actually gotten worse. And affordable housing is even a whole other topic we're not talking about. So we lack in affordable housing. We lack in housing as a whole. And then you had, supply chain issues. You had home builders who couldn't predict what was going to go on in the latter part of 2022. So compounding with supply issues on product, they pulled back. Now you have home builders doubling down and trying to catch up to demand. So, I do not see this market like '08. I don't. I do see we have, inflation, fear of recession. We have the issues with balance sheet and banking issues. We have worldwide issues going on. There's no way for us to predict it, but I'm just telling you from what we see on a day-to-day, because of market consolidation in our space, our purchase business has gone up, and there are markets where there's still a good demand for homes. And then, we've got all the homeowners now that are sitting at 3% interest rates. Right. So they're now thinking that they don't want to sell. Because they're at right interest rates. So we have a compound, there's multiple issues, multiple good things that are happening and some things that are preventing buyers to be able to purchase homes.
A lot of strange situations all at once happening to the market, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, and at the same time, there are states with high regulations, high taxes, and the population is moving out of states like New York, my home state, Illinois, California. But yet we're still not seeing the real estate prices crack that much in California because a lot of the restrictions from building, there's still a tight housing market, isn't there?
Yes, very much. Yeah, I just actually looked yesterday at some of the prices in our current area where we used to live. It's crazy.
Yes.
But demand is, listen, California is still one of the best states weather-wise, and you still have a lot of second home buyers. You still have a lot of people moving here on vacation, homes. So, but yeah, regulation has prevented a lot of building down to the city and county level. So I'm not seeing a dip in California at all. I live in Nevada. I'm not seeing a dip in Nevada as well.
So earlier, Patty, we were talking about the industry and your company, and you've got a great story. Give us a little bit about your funding company and your story.
Yeah, thanks. Well, listen, I was kind of born into the mortgage industry at the ripe age of 16, so I've really not done anything else. We formed our company, New American Funding. This is our 20th year anniversary. And slowly but sustainably, we've built one of the largest independent mortgage companies in America. I'm super proud to represent the largest female-owned and largest minority-owned independent mortgage bank in America. And, I come from a credit risk background. I was taught very early on how to underwrite a mortgage loan. So we've grown our platform very sustainably. We didn't do subprime lending. We've always sold to the agencies. So, it's really given us a leap forward. We're also very visionary when it comes to the way different buyers want to purchase homes today, meaning the millennials versus, the baby boomers, where they were much more paper oriented. The millennials want to buy everything off their cell phone. So I really feel like we've kept up our tech and allow buyers to go through the home buying process the way they feel necessary, right? The way they want to interact in business and how they feel comfortable purchasing a home. That's why we've done so well in the minority markets as well, with Hispanic and lending to the Black communities, is that we've built a platform that's very culturally intuitive and centric to all cultures that exist in this country. So I think we've been leading that effort for many, many years. So yeah, I think it's just a lot of luck and a lot of brilliance and a lot of teamwork with my co-founder and husband.
Yeah. So earlier we were talking about how a year ago things were so hot, and now The estimates are industry-wide about 80% of the real estate mortgage brokers from a year ago have even left or retired or quit or whatever. So there's been a huge vetting in the industry, and that creates problems and opportunities. Let's talk about that. So mortgage upheaval, what's next?
Yeah, I mean, historically, you can see through trends, most mortgage companies don't make it, right? We built our company to make it. It's been very conservatively run for many, many years. We actually like markets like this. There's a sort of cleansing that exists when you have loan officers that are just focused on refis, where, that is not how we train. Our loan officers focus on purchase. We do have a prolific call center that does focus on refinances and purchase. But really, that's something that I learned a long, long time ago when I was young, that really the longevity of any independent mortgage bank is to be able to capture as much market share in the purchase side of it. So there's a natural cleansing that goes on when there's not refinances going on anymore. People that don't really network with realtors or have a purchase-centric model. So we are growing by virtue of that. We're known to be a very sustainable platform, and people are looking for where they can kind of continue to grow their purchase business and grow with a company that's very visionary as far as being able to attract talent that wants to stay in this business for a really long time. So I like markets like this, but yeah, I don't wish anybody ill, but it's just the way that the mortgage business has been run for many, many years, because it is a very, very up business and it's a very, very down business. Yeah. You have to prepare for the downs. When it's up, you need to be saving for the downs.
So those that would like a market like this are those that are smarter, quicker, and have a better plan. Sounds like that's what you guys are.
Yes, absolutely. We've been waiting for, last year I was waiting for that to happen. Now I wasn't happy that it happened. No one's happy that it happened, but it was definitely something we were prepared for.
So as you prepare for it, what kinds of things happen to your company? Do you take market share? Do you train new people? Do you bulk up and then come roaring out of the bottom? Tell us how that works.
Yeah, we're not, when you see those companies that, like, I won't name any companies, but a lot of companies that came through COVID, right? And we had never heard of them before, yet they gained a lot of market share, and they were very refinance centric. They're pretty much off the grid now. You don't even hear of those companies, right? Very much like the call centers, like owning that are gone now, or Cash Call, they're gone now. Those companies come into the market just to cater to refinance market. Mm-hmm. The long-term companies like New American Funding or Rocket or Guild, that it's been around 60 years, we focus on purchase. Mm-hmm. And that is really the core to any independent mortgage company, is really capturing that purchase business, because people buy no matter what. Life happens, right? Divorce, death, change of real estate happens. So you really have to have that as a focus.
Well, in fact, Patty, isn't part of the strength in certain markets, a lot of the folks that didn't buy homes during that big meltdown to 2012, and then we never really quite recovered, aren't some of those people now forming homes maybe 10 years? Right? 10 years later.
Yes, they are. I mean, it's the number one tool to building wealth in our country.
Right. So you either buy your own home or you pay rent to someone else and you help pay their mortgage, right?
Exactly. And that works for some people. But yeah, the number one key to building wealth for most people in this country is through home ownership.
Nice. Well, good. So what trends are you seeing now? We're in a rough patch here. We'll come out of it eventually. What kind of trends are you seeing now in the mortgage and then related real estate market that we'll see going forward over the next cycle from here?
I do see a big trend in cash buying. There are platforms that have been built. We have one ourselves. It's called NAF Cash. And we arm the borrowers that are buying homes with an offer so they can come in and compete with all cash buyers. We did see a slowdown in that company the last year, but we now, since there's multiple offers happening in certain markets, I think that the all cash platform is here to stay, as sellers typically will sell their home at a lower cost basis to them so that they now can move to their next home to a cash buyer. roughly 13% savings if you offer cash versus financing to a seller.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's significant. So I think that model's here to stay. We built that company in latter part of 2021 to compete with some competitors that were doing it. Those competitors, most of them did not last, but our platforms is operating at full force and is actually doing really well.
Okay, good. So what are older folks doing in real estate these days? Are seniors still owning homes, or is there a big trend to assisted living, and how is that market?
We've actually, again, seen an uptick in our reverse lending division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I still think that the reverse mortgage is a great mortgage for most people. It's the family dynamic usually has a lot of, say around whether, a particular borrower will want to get a reverse mortgage. But we've actually seen such great stories come out of that product where that older population didn't know it existed, and yet it pretty much took every financial worry off the plate for them. So I think it's a wonderful product. I've seen an uptick on reverses since most borrowers are staying in their homes now. So nice. Yeah, I think the reverse mortgage is still a good option, and just really to go to a reputable lender that actually knows how to explain, from A to Z how it works so that the whole family dynamic understands it.
So Patty, we've had reverse mortgages for how long now? Maybe
years.
20 years, something like that?
Yeah, at least. We've been doing them probably for the last decade, and we have a really solid platform. There have been some companies that have really grown to be the leader in that space. Only one company was really doing a majority of the loans. We kind of took more of a slow approach to it, where we really like to sit down and explain the mortgage. This is not an automated mortgage, right? You don't want to just zoom on an automated platform. This product has to be explained to the consumer and oftentimes their family. So it's not a product that's going to close in 2 weeks or 30 days. Oftentimes it'll take anywhere from 45 to 90 days to close a reverse mortgage, just so that we ensure that the borrowers completely understand what happens.
Exactly. Well, we always wondered, now that the reverse mortgage industry has been around for a couple decades, when people pass young, the banks make more money. When they live longer, the banks make less money. Have the banks or the funding holders, not just banks, have they done okay in the reverse mortgage?
Our reverse book has performed very, very well. I don't look at the industry. I just kind of look at what we originate, what we sell. And, much like the rest of the loans that we administer to the consumer, our default ratio is under industry average in our servicing portfolio. So, and we do a large percentage of loans to what is considered high credit risk, meaning your minority home buyers, and our servicing portfolio still performs better than the industry average. So I think it's our approach to educate all consumers, especially consumers that didn't or don't find that they have maybe the financial education or the past, or haven't had maybe family members that have owned homes. We really do a really good job in educating our consumers.
Nice. So you built a very, very large company. Tell us a little bit about the scope of your firm and where you operate.
Yeah, so we operate in all 50 states. We don't currently lend today in Hawaii. We're approved in New York, but again, we are not active in New York much because of the overregulation that happens in that state. I'm conservative. I like to have relationships before I enter a state, but we've been operating in all the other states for 20 years. So, we built this company. We have over almost 200 branches across the country. We have about 4,000 employees. So, we're still a very viable. I was actually super excited to hear, we had to lay off a lot of our team members last year just due to the market consolidation. And the last few weeks, we've been hiring people back. So that always makes me happy. No one wants to build something and then purposely have to tear it down. And that's what's difficult when you own an independent mortgage bank.
Sure, of course. Well, and also, Patty, you've worked on establishing your New American Funding's Latino Focus and New American Dream programs. Tell us a little bit about those. They look interesting.
Yeah. So, I come from a Hispanic background. My mother is a Mexican immigrant. I culturally resonate as being a Latina. That's my whole life. Grew up living, both here and in Mexico. So early in 1994, when I actually worked for another large independent mortgage bank, the faucet turned off. There was no business, but yet in the town next to me, which was Santa Ana, California, with I think they're one of the largest Hispanic demographic cities in America. I saw, well, wow, why is there so many people in that city still buying homes? So I thought, I speak Spanish really well, so I'm going to go ask realtors for those loans. So I early in 1994 started to focus on the Hispanic market and then carried that on to what I do today, and have now built one of the largest companies in America that lend to the Hispanic market. That started out just from really understanding the cultural nuances in underwriting and feeling very safe in being able to fund loans and sell them to the agencies without any repercussion, meaning them coming to me going, why are you funding these loans? They don't make sense. Well, I do make sense of cultural nuances in underwriting to the agency. So I feel like I've been a viable part of educating Fannie and Freddie and Jenny on what it's like. You can't automate cultural nuances. And that's really a mistake that's been made in this business for a long time. I do see some things changing, but not fast enough for the demand. So we started Latino Focus years ago now. I don't remember when we started, maybe 2012 or 13. And then I got challenged by a Black gentleman around 2015 at a conference. And he said, it's really great what you're doing for the Latino market, but what are you doing for the African-American market? And I actually thanked him for calling me out, right? This is what is lacking, is everybody's so afraid to really speak up for themselves. And I said, I really appreciate you asking me that question. I haven't had a focus in the Black community. I actually am not Black, so I didn't come from that background. But I promised him that I would take it to heart. So I took it to heart and I took it back to my company and pulled every Black employee on a telephone call because there wasn't Zoom back then. And I said, listen, I built this wonderful platform called New American Funding. And I want you guys to do with me what I've done for the Hispanic community, for the Black community. So we just really rallied all our team members together. And we've had a focus in the Black community since 2016. And sadly enough, when we even looked at our percentage of lending to the Black community, then it was only 4%. We're roughly sit around 11% now. So you can see that an initial intentional focus to lend in the community, to learn the cultural nuances, to learn the pain points that they have to access housing finance, was really important in folding it into our underwriting criteria and just really cultural awareness to everybody in the company. It does work. So I've been working, doing that since 2016. And for me personally, that's my passion, is to serve. I really want to see those demographic of loan originators rise in our industry. Mortgage lending is a wonderful career. I didn't even graduate college yet. The world has been like amazing to me because I've stuck with being in this industry for so long. So I really love to mentor those that come into mortgage and let them know of the opportunities that exist for us, mainly minorities or even women leaders. So that's my passion, is to serve and mentor.
Well, and you serve in so many other areas. I see you've got involvement with the Advisory Council for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. You're involved with the National Park Foundation, and you do lobbying in Washington. Tell us a little bit about your extracurriculars and how that helps your industry and your company and all that. It's fascinating.
Thank you. So we are a very regulated business. So, what better way to run a company sustainably and with eyes wide open than to be actively involved with those who oversee us and regulate us. So I also was a member of the CFPB And I also was a member of the HUD advisory board. So I just really try to put myself in front of regulation instead of being reactionary. I try to be a part of the narrative. I try to teach regulators and politicians what it's like to be an independent mortgage bank. Oftentimes they make decisions that impact housing and they have no idea what they're even talking about. So I try to be that person at the table that's necessary before we make these brash decisions that actually oftentimes impact the underserved. So it's just a passion of mine. And I want to be a housing leader. I've done this my whole life. I've built a sustainable company that I find that is reputationally stellar. So if you're going to have a voice around the table, always have my hand up. That's why. So, I do like to serve, but it's also a win-win for New American Funding.
Nice. Tell us, how is the state of housing in the Hispanic in general? I know there's many different groups of Hispanics, and in the Black community, different groups there. But in general, what's the state of housing in those groups?
Hispanics are driving the first-time homebuyer market. They have been for a few years now. If you look at the millennials and the demographics of millennials, the 43% of millennials are minorities. 20% of them are Latinos. And our family formation in the Latino community is typically larger. So we skew younger. We're in ripe home buying age right now. So, the Latino community is driving home ownership. I think the power of the Latino buying power in this country it has a huge impact on our GDP. So I follow that, and I follow it, and I built a company that's ripe and ready to attract the Hispanic home buyer. I want to be looked as a trusted brand to Latino home buyers. And so this has been something I've been working on for a long time. I think it's totally a different culture in the Black community. We're in our infancy in building trust, yet we're far ahead of most independent mortgage banks. After George Floyd incident and the very sad just political divide around what's happened in the Black community, I think a lot of companies just jumped in at that point where we've been in it for a long time. And I think that building an empathetic, culturally aware workforce is something that all companies are doing right now. I just feel like we've been doing it for a bit longer than most companies. So the issues that I see and the opportunities I see in both demographics are large. I would love nothing more than to see the Black community rise in loan originators, in realtors. We need more people in market serving their culture. Same with Hispanic. I know that we've done a better job in the Hispanic operators and loan originators and realtors than we have in the Black community. So I think that there's a great opportunity for that community to enter into lending and or real estate.
Patty, there's much talk about how, immigrant groups come into this country and then they get assimilated and they become in the middle class and they buy homes and things like that. And those are signs of being regular Americans and in the middle class. How do you see that developing in the minority communities in America? Is it strong? Is it developed?
Well, I can only speak for the Latino community. I don't think that's one thing that's powerful about the Latino community. They don't assimilate it as being, look at me. I'm, arguably 50% Latina and white, or I look white, but I 100% resonate as a Latina because of how I culturally grew up. That's the power of the culture. And, if you look at the Hispanic culture in America, we come from different countries. We eat different foods. 63% of Latinos in the U.S. are Mexican American, but the remaining come from Cuba, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Argentina. We all eat different food. We might listen to the same music. We are tied together by language and religion. But in this country, that's what makes us so powerful, is that we don't divide as like, oh, I'm from this country. We unite. And so I find that is a very powerful force. And I do see companies really turning the page, if they're smart, on attracting our culture to their companies, Coca-Cola or Pepsi or, different car manufacturers. I sit back and I watch how their commercials really culturally align with our values. So I think any smart company that wants to do business in the United States of America is going to have to attract the Hispanic community.
Nice. That's great. Well, good. Well, this has been a fascinating discussion. We're coming to the end of our discussion today. We do have a good crowd of people that'll see this. And if you can think of any one message you'd like to leave everybody with today about your industry and the things you do, what would that message be?
I think for our industry and for what I do in home ownership, I really think it's so blasé, but education is key. Seek education when you're purchasing probably the biggest asset you'll ever have in your entire life and building generational wealth for your family. Make sure you're using a trusted advisor and make sure you do your research and you get educated. And I think we're a great platform for that. And there are many others as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Patty. This has been fun. We'll check in with you again. And thanks for being on today's Market Explained.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, everybody, we'll leave it there. Thanks to all of our listeners for joining us again on today's Market Explained. For the 4-star headquarter team in Chicago, our team on the East Coast, and all our advisors in 14 states around the country, I'll sign off for today, and we'll be back with another great episode of the Today's Market Explained, a 4-star podcast and media series. Thanks, everybody.